After he and the Sims left Great Faith, they went directly to Strawberry to get the pearl-handled pistol, but when they arrived, the mercantile was already closed. The Simses said there was no sense in coming back for the pistol. They would simply go in and take it. TJ was frightened at the thought, but the Sims assured him there was no danger. If they were caught, they would simply say that they needed the pistol that night but intended to pay for it on Monday. In the storage room at the back of the store was a small open window through which a child or a person as thin as TJ could wiggle. After waiting almost an hour, the lights had gone out in the Barnetts' living quarters on the second floor. TJ slipped through the window and opened the door, and the Sims entered, their faces masked with stockings and their hands gloved. TJ, now afraid that they had something else in mind, wanted to leave without the pistol, but RW had insisted that he have it. RW broke the lock of the gun case with an axe and gave TJ the much-longed-for gun. Then RW and Melvin went over to a wall cabinet and tried to break off the brass lock. After several unsuccessful minutes, RW swung the axe sharply against the lock and it gave. But as Melvin reached for the metal box inside, Mr. Barnett appeared on the stairs, a flashlight in his hand, his wife behind him. For a long moment, no one moved or said a word as Mr. Barnett shone the light directly on TJ, then on RW and Melvin, their faces darkened by the stockings. But when Mr. Barnett saw the cabinet lock busted, he flew into frenzied action, hopping madly down the stairs and trying to grab the metal box from Melvin. They struggled, with Mr. Barnett getting the better of Melvin, until RW whopped Mr. Barnett solidly on the head from behind with the flat of the axe, and Mr. Barnett slumped into a heap upon the floor as if dead. When Mrs. Barnett saw her husband fall, she dashed across the room and flailed into RW, crying, "You done killed Jim Lee! You done killed him!" RW, trying to escape her grasp, slapped at her, and she fell back, hitting her head against one of the stoves and did not move. Once they were outside, TJ wanted to come straight home, but the Simses said they had business to take care of and told him to wait in the back of the truck. When TJ objected and said that he was going to tell everybody it was RW and Melvin who had hurt the Barnetts unless they took him home, the two of them lit into him, beating him with savage blows until he could not stand, then flung him into the back of the truck and went down the street to the pool hall. TJ lay there for what he thought must have been an hour before crawling from the truck and starting home. About a mile outside of town, he got a ride with a farmer headed for Smellings Creek by way of Soldiers Road. Not wanting to walk past the Simses' place for fear RW and Melvin had taken the Jackson Road home, he did not get out at Jefferson Davis School Road intersection, but instead crossed Soldiers Bridge with the farmer and got out at the intersection beyond the bridge and walked around, coming from the west to our house. TJ, was them Barnetts dead? Asked Stacy when TJ grew quiet. TJ shook his head. I don't know. They sure looked dead. Stacy, anybody find out? You know what they'd do to me? He stood up, his face grimacing with pain. Stacy, help me get home, he pleaded. I'm afraid to go there by myself. RW and Melvin might be waiting. You sure you ain't lying, TJ? I asked suspiciously. I swear, everything I told y'all is the truth. I admit I lied about telling your mama, but I ain't lying now. I ain't. Stacy thought a moment. Why don't you stay here tonight? Papa will tell your daddy what happened, and he won't put... No, cried TJ, his eyes big with terror. Can't tell nobody. I gotta go. He headed for the door, holding his side, but before he could reach it, his legs gave way, and Stacy caught him and guided him back to the bed. I studied TJ closely under the light, sure that he was pulling another fast one. But then he coughed and blood spurted from his mouth. His eyes glazed, his face paled, and I knew that this time TJ was not faking. You're bad hurt, Stacy said. Let me get Big Ma. She'll know what to do. TJ shook his head weakly. My mama, I'll just tell her them white boys beat me for no reason and she'll believe it. She'll take care of me. But you go waken your grandmama and your daddy'll be in it. Stacy, please, you my only friend. I ain't never really had no true friend but you. Stacy, I whispered, afraid of what he might do. As far back as I could remember, Stacy had felt a responsibility for TJ, and I had never really understood why. Perhaps he felt that even a person as despicable as TJ needed someone he could call a friend. Or perhaps he sensed TJ's vulnerability better than TJ did himself. "Stacy, you ain't going, are you?" Stacy wet his lips, thinking. Then he looked at me. "You going back to bed, Cassie. I'll be all right." "Yeah, I know you're going to be all right, because I'm going to tell Papa," I cried, turning to dash for the other room. But Stacy reached into the darkness and caught me. "Look, Cassie, it won't take me but 25 or 30 minutes to run down there and back. Really, it's all right." "You as big a fool as he is, then," I accused frantically. "You don't owe him nothing, especially after what he done to Mama." Stacy released me. "He's hurt bad, Cassie. I gotta get him home." He turned away from me and grabbed his pants. I stared after him. Then I said, "Well, you ain't going without me." If Stacy was going to be a fool and go running out into the night to take an even bigger fool home, the least I could do was make sure he got back in one piece. "Cassie, you can't go." "Go where?" piped little man, sitting up. Christopher John sat up too, yawning sleepily. "Is it morning? What y'all doing up?" little man questioned. He blinked into the light and rubbed his eyes. "TJ, that you? What you doing here? Where y'all going?" "Nowhere. I'm just going to walk TJ home," Stacy said. "Now go on back to sleep." Little man jumped out of bed and pulled his clothes from the hanger where he had neatly hung them. "I'm going too," he squealed. "Not me," said Christopher John, lying back down. While Stacy attempted to put little man back to bed, I checked the porch to make sure that Mr. Morrison wasn't around, and then slipped back to my own room to change. When I emerged again, the boys were on the porch, and Christopher John, his pants over his arms, was murmuring a strong protest against this middle-of-the-night stroll. Stacy attempted to persuade both him and little man back inside, but little man would not budge, and Christopher John, as much as he protested, would not be left behind. Finally, Stacy gave up, and with TJ leaning heavily against him, hurried across the lawn. The rest of us followed.